Sometimes your pride event may premature. It's just, it's just life. And if it happens more often, consult a doctor. Maybe Toronto Pride needs to take a Cialis or a Viagra.
Disrupt America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. It is the end of June, the last weekend of June. Anyone that lives in a big metropolitan area, New York City, Toronto, etc., you know what big event usually happens around that time. Obviously, this is the annual Pride Parade that takes in Toronto and many other cities across North America. And this one in particular had a lot of interesting stories come about this. Now, as someone, and I've spoken extensively about this, as someone who is considered an ally for the LGBTQ community, I have no problems. I don't believe that anyone has the right to criticize your sexual orientation. I don't think that matters to people. I think people should be allowed to live freely and express who they are as humanely and civilized as any other person. I don't think there should be any disrespect or correlation against that. But there are some people, and we're going to get into the downs and lows of what happened during this year's Pride Parade. But before we get into that, here's just a little bit of footage here. So CP24 broadcasted the event, and here's Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow, who was attending the event, who was on one of the Pride Parade floats, and she made a statement about this year's campaign, which is all in. And after she dug her heels in to say that a lot of the corporate sponsors were getting away from, celebrating Pride Month and not contributing to Pride events, that she was kind of angered. She was, raising her fist. How dare you? Even though it was Home Depot, an American corporation that I thought we were already boycotting because of Elbows Up, but let that be guessed. So here's Olivia Chow speaking about this year's Pride event.
Hugs all around. Thank you, Coach.
Mayor Chow! Happy Pride! Welcome to the stage.
You brought the sunshine.
You did.
With the weather and the outfit, and you're right in the spirit of things.
It is so joyous.
Yes.
It made me so proud to be mayor of Toronto. Yeah. And this city is phenomenal. And Pride is about, and we're...
Sorry, did I just hear that? The city is phenomenal. It literally sounds like she's drunk. It literally sounds like she's drunk. Anytime she does like these interviews, these like one-on-one, it literally sounds like she's had a few colorful cocktails, if you know what I mean. Like, listen to that.
It made me so proud to be mayor of Toronto. Yeah. And this city is phenomenal. And Pride is about... And we're all in for love and justice. All in to say that you have the freedom to love who you want and the freedom to be who you are.
100%.
Isn't that what it's all about?
That's
right?
what it's about.
Yeah.
It's a whole month, Pride Month, but it kind of culminates here, and it always shocks me, the energy, even on this final day.
I know.
I think, though, all those things you talk about, love, authenticity, when we connect with each other, we share. We don't deplete each other, right?
No, we build each other up. And that's why Toronto is so strong, because of the diversity.
That's true.
And you can see it on the street.
Yeah, think of the diversity that comes out of Toronto. The crack whores, the drug addicts, the crime. It's very diverse. It's very diverse. Everyone becomes one of these things. Isn't it funny that the most diverse program coming out of the government is turning everyone into basically a peasant? That you're going to become a technological feudalist slave? That's literally the most, the most gleeful part of diversity. Because it just seems like every measure, and this is not against, again, as someone who is an ally for the LGBTQ community, and I've, expressed both sides of the argument, and we're going to see later on in the segment about it. It just becomes so overwhelming or so over the line that it becomes more marginalized than people realize. Like, the more they put emphasis on this event or adding more letters to the alphabet crew, you're not really helping the cause. You're not really helping incorporating what was supposed to be just a marginalized group of people, incorporating them into everyday society. That's what I thought the LGBTQ was. Again, I'm not for discrimination based on sexual orientation. That's what I thought what used to be an ally. But now there's people out there, they're discriminating against gay people. That they're not true gay enough because they don't support, transgender bottom surgery on children. They don't support hormone therapy. They don't support, kids going to drag shows. I have nothing against it. I have nothing against, drag shows in particular. But I agree they shouldn't be children there. That's not a child event. That's not made for children. That's an adult entertainment. Same way I don't bring children to a strip club. Like, there's a reason it's called adult entertainment. There's a reason why you go to these events as an adult, not as a family-oriented thing. So, speaking of that, and getting into why we're having this discussion about Pride event, because this guy, Mr. Real Bench, pointed this out. And people have mentioned this before. People have seen this numerous times. For the most part, I will say for the most part, Pride events, relatively safe. Relatively, it's just people on floats. They dress in colorful material. It's no different than St. Patrick's Day parades or, Caribbean Fest that happens in Toronto. I don't see a major problem with it, but I do see dilemmas when you see stuff like this. So, Mr. Real Bench pointed this out, saying, put up a pride flag and you can walk around naked in front of children without being arrested by police. Yes, this happens at the Toronto Pride Parade. How is this okay? Now, obviously, I'm not going to show you the footage because we're on YouTube. I'm not going to obviously have standards for that, but you can kind of see just on that screenshot alone that there are individuals that would do this. And this is a dilemma. This is what, again, anytime I hear that, bring your family to these events, that's what gives me red flags. That's the red flag right there. Like, why do I need to bring children into this mess? Why do children need to participate in this? Why does a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old need to be exposed to this? Let them climb trees. Let them eat dirt. Remember those days? And now you're seeing, trying to bring the family unit into incorporating this. It just goes so over the line in certain aspects. But that's not the real dilemma that we're discussing here. This is the big highlight. And such a big highlight that the Times of Israel, so a foreign press outlet, had to report on this. Because at the Pride event, anti-Israel protesters forced premature end to Toronto Pride Parade. Good choice of words. Sometimes your Pride event may premature. It's just, it's just life. And if it happens more often, consult a doctor. Maybe Toronto Pride needs to take a Cialis or a Viagra time to time. Maybe it's getting up there. Maybe it's its first time, It happens. That's still too funny. Demonstrators hold up march for 45 minutes until organizers cancel the event, citing public safety. Police say they could have dealt with protests, but organizers said not to interfere. So that was obviously a big dilemma that was going on here. This is from Toronto GTA World Beyond War. This is a nonprofit saying, tell Pride TO, that's who organized the event, stop pinkwashing now. There is no pride in genocide. So they free Palestine protesters and people that want to stop the genocide in Gaza that's still continuing to this day even after people misled you and said that the war is over and Trump's going to save everything, and, oh, he said F to Israel, so obviously they're going to cooperate. It's still happening, folks. It's still happening. So, Free Palestine protesters got involved into this event. It's caused a bit of a dilemma, caused a bit of a stir-up, and you know what? I actually agree with that statement. I agree with that statement that it just seems ridiculous. And he even said that in a perfect world, a pride event like this would not be necessary. It would not be necessary. And the fact that corporations try to, masquerade themselves with the rainbow colors, they put on those logos. We've expressed this, so deeply about how it's been capitalized, that this idea of just incorporating people as people and not, characterizing based on their color of skin or sexual orientation or religious beliefs, just treat people as people, has just gone so far off the rails that we're more marginalized and more separated than people realize. That the more we keep doing this, it's not actually helping the cause. It's not helping people just to be people. That we're just more marginalizing people and putting them into different labels to distract us from the real dilemmas, like funding a genocide. Because I think killing children with your tax dollars is far more important than whether or not you shake your booty at a pride event. Just my take on that. So here, this is later on the broadcast on CP24, and they actually had to halt the event. That the Free Palestine protesters, the anti-genocide activists, had stopped this event. And listen to how CP24 reacts to this moment and reacts to why they're protesting. Because you've seen the media, you've seen how they cover it, you've seen how they spin different directions. But here's what they say.
They're messaging about what's going on over in Gaza.
Yes, and we've been told that it will take place for about a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, and then they will continue to walk. So we are here standing by. As you can see, lots more of marchers right behind them. 25,000 marchers in total.
Yeah, it's an incredible parade, incredible opportunity to get this messaging across to millions of viewers. But we are going to continue to stick with this and send it to break. We'll be back with more from the parade, Toronto Pride 2025. They're messaging.
I don't know if people could see the banner that they got there. So it says, boycott corporate pride, cut ties with genocide, rebuild the people's pride. So it is kind of interesting, the fact that Free Palestine activists, they could see they're wearing masks and the formal attire. I forget the name of it. It starts with a K. It'll come to me. They're like in full clothing, and they're in the same parade as naked people. I think that's kind of funny. And I support this message. The problem with it is that they're at the wrong place. Yes, this is being televised. Yes, you're getting the word out to people on the street that may have no idea what's going on in the Middle East or are afraid to care about the Middle East. That's all said and well, but it's not actually going to change anything. People already know what's happening in Gaza. People with a cell phone who have TikTok accounts, who have, social media access, they already pretty much know what's happening in Gaza. They know what's happening over there. They know that the IDF is currently murdering children as they're lining up at humanitarian aid sites. We know that's happening. So for you to go to a pride event filled with just regular people with no real influential power is not helping the cause. It's just causing more of a dilemma. Whereas if they took this to even, say, Queen's Park and took that message right to Doug Ford, who's the Premier of Ontario, that's at least something. That's at least significant, because then that puts pressure on someone who actually has legislative power. who actually has power and influence to do something about that. He can bring that to the federal government. Or even if they protest in front of Ottawa. You know, there's a reason why the Freedom Convoy caused more ruckus and they freaked out more than the Free Palestine marches or any marches outside of that, because the Freedom Convoy actually interrupted the system. It interrupted the flow of capital. It interrupted the flow of trade. So that's why they panicked. That's why they freaked out. That's why they cracked down on the bank accounts of truckers to force them to leave. But this, I get the message, but it doesn't actually have real motivation or transformational change to do anything. So this stunt is basically just a stunt. Unless you're going to take that to someone with influence and power, what purpose is there? What purpose is there? Because a lot of people in this crowd would obviously know what's happening in Gaza. They already know about it, but they don't have the power. They don't have the influence. They don't have means to actually do anything to stop this other than just getting more word out. So that's the dilemma with that. And at the same time, this is what made it so confusing. It's just a clash of so many things. So this Alex Station says Zionists marching at Toronto Pride with full security, welcomed by the city. Meanwhile, the same city tried to ban queers against Israeli apartheid for opposing apartheid. Supporting genocide is fine, but naming it isn't. No pride in genocide. So, it's just, again, the mixing of all this is just adding just more confusion, and it just drowns out the significance of what they're protesting. Like, when you're at a pride event and you see people protesting for trans rights and gay rights and, you know, the regular stuff you see with Pride Month on top of Free Palestine, and then you also have Jewish Zionists that are getting police escorts in the Pride marches, clashing with the Free Palestine activists. It's not going to do anything good. It's not going to resemble anything good. It's just going to be a clash of people that are going to be distracted and angry at each other, and nothing will significantly change. So here is a bit of video of the Zionists walking down the streets of Toronto with a police escort. And it is kind of hilarious if you know a little thing or two about Israel's law, that not only is it not really a secular nation, as people would like to believe, but they won't even allow the marriage of biracial couples. So if someone is marrying outside the bloodlines of the perfect, the perfect creed of Israel, or the race of the so-called of Israeli people, they will not be recognized in Israel. So it's kind of ironic that they'd be walking in a pride event, knowing that they're supporting a colonization, a military base, as RFK Jr. would say, a colonization where they don't even recognize, interracial marriages. You can't even have a DNA test because they don't want people to know if you have outsider roots, if you're part Arab or you're from a different country than the supposed Holy Land. So it is really just remarkable, the irony twist of all this. But here's a video.
Look at this. There's their fucking sign. We belong. CIJA. That's the Canadian APAC. They're bombing children every fucking day. Look, Israel flag. Israel flag. They're in the Pride fucking parade. Fuck you. Fuck Israel. Fuck you, motherfuckers. Look, they have all this fucking security. They have all this security, too. Look at this.
So, yeah, this just gets so crazy. And like I said, as someone who considers themselves an ally to the LGBTQ community and, relatively doesn't have a problem with pride events like this. I don't have a problem with pride marches because, you know, let's face it, there's going to be marches for anything. They do marches for St. Patrick's Day. They do marches for Caribbean Fest. They do marches for any sort of, you know, group of people. I would say in a perfect world, we wouldn't need these marches, but if they're going to do it anyway, you might as well just have the pride event. Like, that's my statement of it. That's my philosophy. I just I'm not against nor for it. You know, I have no emotion to it. But when you get involved in this, when you get clans of people from, you know, the Jewish Zionists, the pro-Israel crowd, to the pro-Palestine crowd, to individuals who go full buff naked, and they're trying to get people riled up together to say that it's a family event, it causes nothing but chaos. And do you see how it's ruining this event? Do you see that it's causing more harm to the foundation of why you have these pride marches, why there's a pride weekend? It's not helping your cause. It's hurting it. And the more and more this just happens, the more and more they try to overreach boundaries and go this route, it's not going to help your community. It's not going to make it beneficial. And that's why there's people that have concerns. They're not, you know, homophobic per se, or they're not against the pride marches. They have concerns. They have concerns about all this. And not only was there the clashing between Israelis and pro-Palestinians, but there was also another protest within a protest within a protest. Because pride protests in Toronto call for federal support for trans rights. So the LGBTQ, or the original letters of the alphabet crew, you know, typically just want to live normal, happy, fulfilling lives like anybody else. You know, to paraphrase what MLK preached, judge the people by their character, not by the color of their skin or their ethnicity or their religion or sexual orientation. But yet, there's always a stir within these crowds. There's always a stir because just as we're seeing the clashing of, you know, getting foreign affairs involved in this, which again, I understand the message and I support that message, but it's not going to do really significance to do this during the Pride event, considering the fact that majority of the crowd already knows about this. And the reason they can't do anything about it is because they don't have influence. They don't have power. Whereas if you took it to Queen's Park, you took it to the Parliament building, and you pressure them, maybe something will come out of it. So, but here is a bit,
and in addition
of the protest within a protest within a protest of trying to get more trans rights involved in the federal government.
To those celebrations, there were also activists who took to the streets, including to protest the involvement of police in Pride festivities. So this protest was organized by the No Pride in Policing Coalition, a separate group from Pride Toronto that was formed in 2018 to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Their first rally was in 2020 against the backdrop of the George Floyd protests. Organizers say Donald Trump's return to the White House is threatening trans rights, and Canada isn't responding strong enough.
We're seeing trans people.
So, let me get this straight. And pardon my reference there. Pardon my words. Let me get a hold of this. They're protesting our federal government because America elected their president, and what's happening in their country is somehow affecting Canada, even though there's no correlation between the two. Like, I really don't understand this. I really don't understand this. Like, Canada is its own separate nation, or at least we try to be. We try to be. We try to resemble a sovereign nation, even though it's been hollowed out year after year after year by nefarious ghouls, international conglomeracy of the WEF, and now we have a central banker that's hollowing us out like it's, closing day at Hudson's Bay. I don't understand this. I don't understand the amount of just anger and, manufactured hatred, because that's what this is. This is all built up manufactured hatred to go in to protest because America has their president and he's signing laws for Americans, and apparently Canadians feel afflicted to this. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Help me figure this out. Help me figure out why the necessary need to do a protest in a pride event where the whole purpose of the pride event is to be prideful of who you are. You're a Canadian, you're part of the club, whatever, that's fine. So why this? Why do we even need this? It just seems so crazy.
Be denied their identity on their official documents, particularly passports in the United States, such now that trans people are not allowed to have the gender that they identify as on official documents. This puts them in danger when they travel. It makes them targets of border officials and other public officials. These are the kinds of things that the Trump...
As opposed to people that write op-eds, as people that go to school, that are legal citizens, that are legal residents, green card holding legal residents, that the only criminal act they could possibly charge them with is partaking in a demonstration that criticizes foreign affairs. They're not protesting on that, but they're protesting that, trans people don't get to have their certain letter on a passport. Like, again, I've said this before, and if people understand the whole concept of this is why DEI is so controversial. It's not that people are against diversity. It's not criticizing people to say that we can't incorporate, colored people or Muslim people or whatever into corporations. The purpose of DEI, and if you look at the whole history of it, is to segregate people. It's not to incorporate. It's not to make it diverse. It's all a distraction. It's all a distraction. Same with woke politics. It's all a distraction to keep us fighting within ourselves so we get completely distracted from what our federal government, what our lawmakers, what people with actual influence and power have in store to inflict on us. And like I said, the biggest inclusive program the government ever gives to Canadians is turning our country into a slave market where all of Canadians, all walks of life of Canadians, will be turned into WEF minions. And it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bi, what color your skin is. It doesn't matter. They're going to swoop in and take everybody. So then, Honest Reporting Canada did this little segment here, and I find it so ironic that they call it Honest Reporting Canada, and yet the times that I've seen them report, I've had to criticize them. I had to correct the record. I've explained to them. Like, you could tell they're showing their unbelievable bias when it comes to Israel-Palestine. And if they were actually honest reporting, they would be informing Canadians about, hey, you know that Hamas group that everyone's angry about, that people want them gone, these terrorist groups? Maybe we should track the funding. Maybe we should find out where Hamas originated from. Oh, that's right. It originated from Israel. Like how Al-Qaeda and ISIS came from the United States. You know how I know that? Because they told you that. Hillary Clinton admitted to that in 2010. Benjamin Netanyahu gave suitcases of money directly to Hamas. And somehow I know this, but Honest Reporting Canada doesn't. Go figure. But anyway, they made this statement saying Canadians have spoken per this Toronto Sun poll. 95% of close to 3,000 respondents believe that organizers of pro-Hamas rallies, again, they're not pro-Hamas, they're just wanting to end the genocide. They don't want their tax dollars funding the bloodshed and wiping out mass amounts of children. They just want the genocide to end. That's it. They have no obligation to Hamas or Israel or Palestine. They just don't want their taxes being paid for it. Pro-Hamas rallies should pay for the cost of policing their oftentimes hateful and law-breaking demonstrations. Well, as much as people got frustrated that the Pride Parade, what was Times of Israel, had a premature stop, much as people would be flabbergasted on that, did they break the law? Did they actually break the law? And talking about policing, you had police escorts for a Jewish organization that probably paid the officers to march alongside them in a pride event. A pride event that, if you know anything about your said Holy Land, they would hate that. They would hate that demonstration. They would go after and penalize and beat up those people. So the whole thing, this whole thing is such a contradiction that it just ruins, it entirely ruins the whole purpose of what this Pride event is supposed to resemble. And again, well, Honest Reporting is getting angry at Canadians and saying that, hey, you guys and your Hamas rallies, you need to smarten up. You got to shape up and you got to do that, pointing the finger at Canadians. Just remember that IDF soldiers were ordered to deliberately shoot at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. And you know who's saying that? Not Al Jazeera, not a pro, Arab publication. That's from Haaretz. That's from Israeli press. You want to know what's really going on in the world? If you really want to know what's going on with Israel and Palestine, go look at Israeli media, because they're not shy. They're not shy to reveal all this information, the gross dealings that they are doing to Palestinians. They're openly honest about their mass murders. They're openly honest about how they don't want to respect Palestinians. They have no tolerance for anyone there. They're going after everybody because in their philosophical mind, there's two reasons to it. In their philosophical mind, they want to eliminate the Palestinian race so they can seize territory of their land and seize territory of Arab countries. That's the Greater Israeli Project, part of the Zionist culture. And also, the reason that allied countries are so supportive of this is because they've just discovered that the Palestinian territory has a bunch of resources. Oh, just like every other war we partaked for the last 30 years. And I've not seen Honest Reporting say a word about that. And I just wanted to show this for people, still freaking out about, the Gaza protests. They did this last year. And it says Toronto's 2024 Pride Parade ended early, canceled after protests. We made the decision to cancel the remainder of the parade out of our commitment to ensuring public safety, Pride Toronto said after demonstrators brought the parade to a stop at Yonge Street and Wesley Street. So, there you go. The Pride Festival, where Olivia Chow said it's all about, being inclusive and what you love and support who you love. Isn't it kind of interesting that, this kind of separation, even though it's supposed to be inclusive, it feels more separate than ever. And that's why I said, as someone who's, not discriminatory on whoever people are. It just feels so weird that we're pushing these events that are making things more, we're segregating more people, we're separating, dividing, and making things more divisive than we are actually combating problems. Like, imagine a world where instead of focusing on pride events and trans rights and what bathroom we use and this and that and the other, we all come together and focus on, healthcare, education, good paying jobs. How about fixing the infrastructure so that streets don't buckle during the heat? Why aren't we focusing on that? Why aren't we focusing on getting toxins out of our food? That affects everybody. That affects everybody, regardless of who you are. But they want you so focused on this because it's the ultimate distraction. They've used this since World War II. This is the ultimate bait and switch. That people get angered at each other and we get more divisive, more separate, more angry, more flustered at our own community members, our people within our society, so that the evil oligarchs, the people that have power and jurisdiction over us, can continue on their catastrophic damages to our society and rule over us like henchmen and and do the prophecies of their masters within the WEF, within George Soros, within the billionaire class that truly occupy the entire world. So, like I said, in perfect world, we wouldn't even really need this Pride event. And just looking at this, it's become just so much of a cluster that something needs to give. Something needs to give. We need to come together and just say, we have no problem with the Pride event. We have no problems with this. But the amount of back and forth, the tension, it's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.